everybody. Anna here. I am here today with my friend Vic Basmadjian. Did I say that right?
Very good. Very
Well,
good.
well, my last name was Papani with a G, Papagni, one of those easy to spell, you know, Southern Italian names. So,
That's okay. No, you did really well.
so,
It's
uh, so Vic, you've been on this journey about 4 years.
correct.
Basically getting rid of the carbohydrates, getting rid of the junk food, all of that. And you used to call yourself a foodie. Tell me a little bit about your story. Why did you make the decision to, let go of so many um, foods, or what we considered foods before, that helped you create, your foodie recipes and everything? What made you make that decision? What was that like for you? Was it hard being a foodie to do it?
Yeah. Well, listen. I'm still a foodie. I still really enjoy food. It's just that I'm smarter about it now. Uh, I've learned to eliminate the foods that were doing harm to me, and I had absolutely no concept of what addiction was, or to even recognize that I was uh, an addict in reality. And but I was just calling it being a foodie, enjoying food, and then you find out why this is. You come to realize why you were failing every time you tried to lose weight. And okay, the problem was not losing the weight. I would lose the weight, but there was no way of maintaining. There was no way of keeping it off. I would get it off, but I would be so miserable and saying I'm deprived and I can't eat this and I can't eat that, and moderation, and have this in moderation, have that in moderation. And
Well, they tell you that, don't they? They tell you you don't want to restrict. It's a bad idea to get rid of a food group, or you can't, it's not sustainable. You have to have a little treat here and there, or you won't be able to live with this way of eating, right? But for those of us that are addicts, it's the exact opposite, isn't it?
100%, 100%. There's no moderation just doesn't work, because moderation just takes you back to zero. So let's say you were doing good for a week or two, and you were eliminating the stuff that triggers you, and then moderation. I like to bring up the example. It's like, can anybody smoke in moderation? Can anybody if they're a heavy smoker? I mean, I very well do know people, having said that, yeah, they're occasional smokers, but the real hardcore smoker cannot be an occasional
Wow.
smoker. Okay, you got to tell them to smoke on a Sunday and then go to not back to smoking on Monday. Same thing with alcohol. I believe is the same thing.
Because it's the
Tell them
same disorder, right? It's addiction, and it's just a different substance or a different outlet. So I like to think of addiction this way: like, your house has one big control panel, right, for all your electrical wiring, and all that wiring goes to that same place. But for each wire, there's a different outlet, or there's a different switch, or there's a different fan, or whatever. And that's the way addiction is. It's like, it's the same wiring in your brain, but then whatever you're doing is that different thing, right? And so it's a kind of a process of discovery, because I think once you're an addict, then you have to like play with your food plan. Who knows when it's going to be, I get away from the perfect food plan kind of thinking. And I just have to be honest with myself. If anything is triggering me at all, that doesn't mean that I don't enjoy my food, because I too consider myself a foodie. I was raised by John Carlo Papani, who had a bathtub of basil growing in his, literally in my dad's barbershop. And when my husband met him, he was like, "My God, honey, you really are Italian." My dad would take his blow dryer and he would waft that basil smell into the Italian guy sitting in the chair while they're speaking Italian. People paid him in steaks, Vic. I grew up with, food is love and this whole kind of mentality. And now, I take that to mean something different. If I love myself and if I love people, I'm going to make food that's satisfying to eat, that doesn't harm them. And that's a huge
yeah,
difference.
it is absolutely huge. I can totally resonates with me what you just said. I mean, it's the same for me. Okay, it's a cultural thing, and food is so much. I'm of an Armenian descent, Armenian origin, and food for us is it's the almighty. It's what dictates our life. It's how you respect somebody. It's how you show love to somebody. It's how you reward somebody. If it's a kid, reward them with. I think that works whether no matter what nationality you are. I think it's
Yes.
the rewarding of the kids, right? And but it's really a big part of our culture. And I look back now on some of the spreads that I've had throughout my pre low carb or keto life, and it goes beyond belief, and the
Oh,
amount,
yeah.
it was nuts.
Everything we did was based around food when I was a kid. If we were with my dad, we were, driving out of the city. I lived in San Francisco, and we were driving out of the city to go to the farmer's market and pick up, farm fresh tomatoes or this or that. So it seemed like really healthy food, but it was very pasta centric, lots of homemade pasta, that kind of thing. And it seemed like something was always bubbling or brewing or simmering, or you were surrounded by the smells of food, the sound of food cooking, everything. And my dad was constantly saying food is love. And so one thing I became addicted to that I wasn't aware of was people pleasing through my great ability to cook fantastic meals for people. So it was almost in some way, now that I'm, recovered, I feel like I really used food to, don't you love me? You'll never leave me because look at all the great food I prepare for you, and now I don't need that. I don't need all the stuff outside of myself. I don't need to manipulate people through things. I don't know. I feel like I'm a more honest person, and food was almost like something I hid behind, to make myself worthy of other people, because I didn't feel like I was worth a lot in some ways. And
Right.
I thought, I could only be worth something if I served people in this way. And I don't know, it's very interesting. Like my cookbook collection was unbelievable. Even my keto cookbook collection, prior to figuring out that the addiction piece, was unreal. It was unreal. And I know how to cook. I don't need cookbooks. I know flavor profiles. I know how to mix and match my herbs and spices and all of that kind of thing to make the same piece of meat taste like 20 different ways. It takes me 5 minutes to figure that out. So
Yes.
how about you? What was your cookbook collection like?
I've always also been, not much of a cookbook person. Um, I not to brag about it. I know my way around the kitchen. Uh, I've always been a good cook. Uh, it's just something I picked up. You know what? I basically picked it up, believe it or not, when I was a young kid, when I was in scouting, and we'd go camping. And so we had to cook meals when we were scouts, and they would teach us how to cook meals and prep meals. So it all started from there. And then, needless to say, at home, my mother was a great cook, right? So you're just like watching, and you learn as you go along. And some people just have that ex, as we say, an extra talent for a palate.
Yes,
And
my daughter Vic, my youngest, she's 17 now, and when she was 4 years old, we were at church, and she took a bite of a cookie at a potluck, and she said to me, "Mom, can you find out who made these cookies?" And she had such a look on her face, like she needed to know who made these cookies. And I said, "I'll show you a trick." And I went and I found the cookies, and they put a little piece of tape with their name underneath. So I said, "Okay, so this is who made the cookies." And she went up to the woman. Here she is, 4 years old, Vic. Talk about a palate. She said, "Excuse me, ma'am, did you use nutmeg in this?"
good for her.
Nutmeg. Okay.
Yeah.
She knew what it tasted like from me making all kinds of, anytime you use cream or spinach or cheese in an Italian recipe, you use nutmeg. So I was blown away, and I used to kind of brag about that, but it's kind of funny, isn't it? It's almost like it's generational. Like we get that And it's also natural because we're supposed to want to survive, right? So,
Right.
so you had some health problems before you uh, started on your journey.
To say the least, I really got myself to a whole bunch of stuff, right? And well, you know what? Let's start with hypertension.
Mm.
That started at a very young age, actually. Okay,
How old?
I was 25,
Wow.
so 25 until 55, 30 years of blood pressure medication. I'll address that first, and just to make the point. And so, you know what? When even by being on medication, I was, let's say, called controlled, but it was still on a good day. I was high 130s over high 80s,
Hmm.
and this was considered the best that we got with medication. And my doctor, throughout 30 years, I had the same doctor. It was never any, I mean, the only advice I got was, would be a 10-minute visit in and out twice a year, and just watch your salt, and the
Isn't
famous
that funny? Because I bet you
yes,
use a lot of salt now.
with what we know now, what I know now, and I'll get to that. And it was watch your salt, eat less and move more, and the cliche line. And oddly enough, 30 years later, when I start this journey, uh, I'm probably using more salt than I ever did. Um, I'm off my blood pressure medication. Uh, I don't measure it on a regular basis. I used to at the beginning, because there was a little bit of paranoia that, is it under control? Is it not under control? I'm way beyond that now. But even at that, I'll every 3 4 months I'll throw the cuff on, and
Mhm.
I'll check it. And I'm generally anywhere 115 over 75 to 78,
That's
somewhere
amazing, Vic. I
in
mean,
those
it's
ranges.
absolutely amazing, but we know carbohydrate, right? 1 gram of carbs hangs on to like 3 grams of water. And so this is what's blowing that all up. Not to mention, the glycation of your arteries and everything causes them to be more brittle and constricted and causes the high blood pressure to begin with. So, what other health
And,
issues?
and and all that to say, not once was it mentioned that maybe, the term insulin resistance or nothing. Okay, absolutely nothing. So just watch your salt and have a good day, and no mention of, eliminating carbs or whatever. Just again, eat in moderation. That's all it was. So that's as far as the blood pressure is concerned. Later on, as I guess later on in my 50s, in my late 40s, early 50s, late 40s, it was the GERD started, the acid reflux. I was always on taking some kind of medication to control that. I'd have terrible episodes, and just about anything I ate, it was like just like having terrible episodes of reflux, and I suffered with that quite some time as well. At one point, it really didn't matter anymore what size of meal I was eating. It was, no matter what I was eating, was I was having a massive meal and having issues, right? And then on top of that, I got to a point where, you know what, I was always tired. I was exhausted. I was pushing 300 pounds. Okay, I was at 200. That's pushing it. I probably went by it, but didn't catch it on the scale on any particular day. But so let's call it 300 pounds. And it would come one in the afternoon, and I just couldn't get by the day anymore. I'd be exhausted. And long story short, went for a sleep study, and sure enough, was diagnosed with sleep apnea.
Mhm.
Um, the respirologist actually was amazed. He says, I don't even know, you're questioning why you're tired. He goes, I don't even know how you're standing. Um, I was stopping breathing. The study revealed, I believe, 45 times, 45 a minute. And some of them were as long as as short as 3 seconds. Some of them were as long as 35 to 40 seconds. So yeah, that was, really an issue. Put me obviously on CPAP therapy, and yeah, sure. It's like the patch, right? It's like you're putting a patch on it. You're not fixing your condition. You're just using the machine to help you get by. And it did the job. I got my energy back, and I would get through the days. But so needless to say, I'm off that as well now. I don't use a
Yes.
machine.
So you must feel like 20 years younger. Seriously.
Seriously, I'll be 59 in September. Uh, I haven't felt this good in my entire adult life.
That's amazing. And you're a keto coach now too, because you
I
believe
am.
so highly in the magic that happens when you give your body the right input. I think it's so funny because, I'm sitting here, my cell phone's turned off so we don't get interrupted, but we know more about our phones and how to work social media and things like that than we do know about our own body. And we go around listening to people, oh, you should be able to eat anything you want in moderation. And we forget that the diet industry is a $700 billion industry. That was last year's numbers, $700 billion or 70 billion. I'm sorry. No, maybe I'm right. I'd have to look it up, but that was a 9% drop from the year before. Can you believe that? So there's still an incredibly lucrative business. One thing that I've noticed lately, I don't know if you've noticed, that they're giving you choices if you want to be low carb, and they're also adding coaches. But the thing about like being a keto coach one-on-one, it's different, I think, because you're not working for some big company and you don't have some party line to toe, and you can actually work with that client, with that client's physician, that kind of thing, and give them more personal attention that I
Correct.
think gets them further faster,
Yes. Yes. And like you said, it's like you've seen me sometimes go off on Twitter. I'm not a hot-headed individual in general. I'm not that type of a person, but when it comes to this subject, sometimes like my buttons get pushed, and like I don't like the word moderation. It really, really, it's moderation that kept me failing all those years.
yes.
And how do you keep preaching this? How do you keep preaching this? And
Well,
then
they don't want to give up their nummies either, Vic. The doctors don't want to give up their goodies. I've gone into doctors' offices to give them a presentation on primal health, on eating more ancestrally, as they've been sitting there drinking huge containers of Dr. Pepper or whatever. Doctors drinking liquid sugar, which we know that 1 8-ounce soda a day, regardless of your size, increases your risk of metabolic syndrome or diabetes exponentially. And I know they know this. And so I think that they can't teach what they don't know.
absolutely.
And they're taught the same thing. They're taught that moderation is okay. They're taught that just don't withhold things from your kids. That will cause them to have an eating disorder, when really what's happening is the early and chronic exposure of that sugar is causing them a brain disorder, where the neurons that fire together wire together, and now they crave having these sweets all the time. And so there's a real withdrawal that you go through, and a lot of people call it the keto flu. And
Yep.
really it's your body. It's because you've been living as a sugar burner for pretty much your whole life. And in North America, if you were born and raised in North America, you've probably been raised as a sugar burner your whole entire life, and your body doesn't know how to even access stored fat for fuel. And that's really what keto is. And I sometimes wish we had a better name for it. I like how Ken Berry calls it the proper human diet, things like that, because it's very strange to me. Is this strange to you? Has it occurred to you? People think we're weird because we don't eat foods out of packages, boxes, cake mixes, that kind of thing. They think we're weird, and we're eating actual real food like vegetables and meat and butter. And somehow we're the ones that are not normal. It's
We are
kind of
the ones.
kind of funny when you think about it.
I listen. I go through that all the time. I think we all do. And it's something that at the beginning used to frustrate me, but now I've come to terms with it. It's just that it is what it is. And yeah, they do think that we are the weird ones, not having the carbohydrates and the sugars, which I mean, at the end, same same result, right? Carb, sugar, call it what you want to call it. And then especially if you get into the topic of to boot, when you tell them that you're intermittent fasting, then you're a real freak of nature, right? It's like, how do you wake up and not have breakfast? And it's like, don't you feel like you're going to pass out? And don't you say that's not normal? And and they'll tease you and they'll make fun of you. And I mean, it's an ongoing joke in my workplace. They'll always tease me, and it's okay. That's all right. I play the game, and it's like somebody will be there and they'll offer me something, and they say, no, he doesn't eat. It's the last time he ate was at the Last Supper, and so yeah, we're not the norm, right? We're not the norm, but when you're part of this community, okay, this is where you see that this community, the great part of this community is that this is what helped me and helps me, and this is why I stay so engaged. You're at least with people that are like-minded, and you find some kind of a normality to yourself, and you say, I'm not the only one who's struggling with this. I'm not the only one that has gone through this in my life, and I get to meet wonderful people like you and everybody, the whole gang.
Well, right back at you, Vic. I absolutely adore you, and I could listen to you talk all day just because of your beautiful voice. And I have to say, you used the word struggle, and for me, it is not a struggle anymore. The struggle would be if I ate something that triggered me again. That's where the struggle is. Like, now that I don't eat things that cause me to feel like eating more of them, that I have no off switch for. Think about the Lay's potato chip commercial. Bet you can't eat just one, right?
Yeah.
We know their marketing, that we know that they have, chemists that are working towards making that food even more hyper palatable and more addictive because they want money. I don't really honestly think they're trying to destroy our health. I think Dr. Lustig brought that up in a group that Bitten Johnson has for the holistic medicine for addiction training. And Dr. Lustig was talking just last Friday about how you would have to prove that all the food companies got together and colluded to make sure that everybody got addicted. But really, they're just individually figuring out, how can we sell more of our product? How can we get more market share, right? That's all they're doing. It's not like they're trying to harm us, but in the process, a couple of people posted this last week. I think Dr. Lustig was one of them. And then Nick Norwitz also posted about that 60% of North Americans' diets are based on ultra processed foods. We're talking about cakes, ice cream, candy, soda, ultra processed.
I think it was Dr. Nick Norwitz. He had put up an article to the point of the average person doesn't realize that they're consuming about 24 teaspoons of sugar a day, combined with all, but they just don't see it, right? I mean, the average person's understanding of sugar is, I only put a teaspoon of sugar into each one of my coffees a day, and that's the sugar I eat.
Right.
So
you don't see it, or it's
hidden
in however many names there are for it.
Correct. They don't count the sugar in the fruit. They don't count the sugar in the cereal. They don't count the sugar in their toast, in their pasta, so they don't count it. So
yes.
When you tell them, do you know that the average person consumes 24 teaspoons of sugar a day? They look at you like you're some kind of a nutcase.
And that's just actual sugar, as Nick pointed out.
Correct.
So
Correct.
I love what, my friend Jen Unwin, her husband David, he says that complex carbs are just simple sugars holding hands, and starch is sugar. And so people think, oh, I'm eating healthy whole grains, but compared to what? Compared to white grains, they weren't compared to, like, if you compare healthy whole grains to a candy bar, there's a lot of similarities. But if you compare healthy whole grains to, say, a can of tuna, wow, now we're looking at how are healthy whole grains, quote unquote, healthy. They have no protein. Every bit of vitamins and minerals comes from putting a multivitamin, which they have to do by law. They have to fortify our cereals by law. Otherwise, if people ate them on the scale they do now, there would be huge malnourishment.
Yeah, and so it's like there's one book that outburst from a book that's always stuck with me, and it was Dr. Ken Berry's Lies My Doctor Told Me.
Lies My Doctor Told Me, yes.
And there was a section that he was pertaining to, let's say, white sugar versus brown sugar, and
yes.
you know, how people are all proud when they're having brown sugar instead of white sugar, right? And then,
or maple syrup or whatever.
And he went on and labeling it as, he was, let's explain it this way: it's poison, and it's organic poison.
Yes.
So,
I love Ken Berry. He's just a doll, and one of the good guys in this space, one of the many, many good guys in this space that their whole life is devoted to helping people get their health back one bite of food at a time. So what would you say to someone who's just starting out? How would you help them to be reassured that this journey is worth taking, to take your health back one bite at a time?
I like to generally, when I start on day one, I like to, what I call, not to set them up for failure. I don't give them any false hopes and expectations that there isn't going to be any road bumps, there isn't going to be any stalls, there isn't going to be any struggles. And I tell them, you know, it's a journey. It's cliche, but it's a journey. It's not a race, you know. And, most of the people that I work with, most of the time it's weight loss related. Now, whether they accept the fact or not, that I kind of tread water when I first meet them, like, do I bring up the addiction factor or not? Eventually it does come out 100%, but some of them, you know, they get a little bit offended when you tell them that there's a addiction. So you like to explain that first, and then once you explain it, they embrace it, and they understand that. They say, yes, I'm that. So yeah, I tell them, it's like, it's not only about the scale. There's a lot of things that, you know, it's all about health. It's not, I don't want them doing, I'm big time against dirty keto. I don't like to see, you know, something.
Eating Cool Whip with chocolate pudding mix.
I'm not a
sugar-free chocolate pudding mix mixed in it together and calling it like keto mousse or something. That's hydrogenated fat, all kinds of things we can't even pronounce, and why we think it's okay to put things we don't even know what they are into our mouth and eat them and think that we're going to get health out of something that's not even native to our body at all, and it doesn't even use it or process it as any kind of fuel source. I mean, I think it's crazy now.
Yeah, I would like to think that I am not, I wouldn't label myself as a purist. Like Amy Berger would say, I know Amy, I follow Amy very well, and you know, keto without the crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I won't, you know, I don't go off the edge for little things, but then what bothers me is when you're going to Costco and there's a whole aisle full of processed packaged goods, and there's labeled keto, and you see the chemical blank storm. I don't know if I should be, you know, I don't want to use that word on YouTube, okay? So it's just that really, I have a big problem with that, okay? So it's not only about losing weight, it's about getting healthy. And when you're not eating healthy, when you're eating the stuff that has all those the bad oils and the bad sucralose and I don't know what, and dextrose and all the oses.
MSG is addictive and will make you eat more, and it's a lot of those products.
What are you doing on the inflammatory markers in your body? Right. So
well, that inflammation is part of what causes obesity to begin with. You know, I think that, you know, it's really interesting thing to bring up, but a healthy, when you give your body healthy input, you're also feeding one of the most important organs, which Amy Berger, I mean, when I interviewed her about her book on Alzheimer's, That was so fascinating because one of the first things she talks about in that book is that 20% of your calories that you eat go to your brain. She calls the brain an energy hog. And so when you are feeding your body, a lot of these neurotransmitters and this energy needs to go for your brain. And when you have a healthy brain and when you unplug from unhealthy foods, unhealthy fats, and your brain can be more clear because now it can run on ketones and not just sugar, which is part of the reason she wrote the book, is because it seems that ketosis can really slow down the disease of Alzheimer's, but it begins happening decades before you have your first sign and symptom. And so I think it's really fascinating to think about, that your body will actually sort things out for itself and become right sized without you having to worry about it much, as long as just one day at a time you feed your brain and your body real nutrient dense, delicious food that you enjoy, and you don't restrict so that you can eat enough to feel satiated. I think people would be like, oh my God, she eats that much. She should be as big as a house, but I'm not, I mean, right now I'm a little puffed up from having to have been on some prednisone for a minute, but that's even starting to go away quickly. And so I think it's interesting. Like once you go through the process and you see for yourself and you see you didn't have to go hungry, did you, Vic?
No. And that's the biggest, that's the main key for myself, at least. I
Yeah.
was always hungry. I was always hungry. I was starving. I was, oh, and
Angry.
yeah, and yes, hangry. Yeah. And, to be completely transparent for other people, I mean, you know this of me, Anna. I've never hid the fact that, like I said, I'm not a purist. However, uh, and I'm against, let's say, the processed stuff.
Right.
But I am human and I do get my occasional cravings on things, right? But I will make it with my own hand and I know what's going into it. Okay.
Exactly.
I will never go and buy something off the shelf with those terrible ingredients. I know what I'll prepare something. I'll prepare my own keto treat, and I know what's going in there. Is it ideal? Absolutely not. Is it better for me than falling off and going to the real bad stuff?
Definitely.
It's a win.
Definitely.
Now, I realize that I'm fortunate to have this option. Some people, whether it's clean or it's not clean, it's going to trigger them just as much on an addiction level.
And I think it depends on the person and it depends on the frequency too.
Right.
You can get a little excited about, ooh, that was really good. I'm going to make that again. And you could have done well one week, but now this next week, because of that reward system, and that first hit on the tongue, some people just get,
And this is
they get triggered.
and this is where I still know myself to be an addict. Okay, because when I do have those treats, I know what's going on and I'm mindful of it. And this is why I use it as that, as an occasional treat and or as a crutch. When somebody, I tell everybody I start coaching, if need be, we'll incorporate it to keep you from falling off if that's an option. We'll see. But
Yes.
I'm not going to
I mean,
start.
I have a client who she came to me and she was like, my husband's miserable. And they're older, they're in their 70s, but they're newlyweds. They've only been married for like 3 years. They should be blissfully happy at 3 years married as full grown adults who came together really knowing themselves, you know. And instead, her being so strict with her keto was causing him to be very unhappy, And so I said, okay, what would make him happy? Well, he wants his treats. Well, he wants this and that. And then I fall off and I eat those things. I said, okay, so what would work for you? Well, maybe if I had a couple of good keto dessert recipes, maybe that would work. And so I said, well, we can manage that. And I gave her like my best recipes because I used to eat that stuff. I know what's good. And now she makes him like a batch of cookies and puts them in the freezer. She'll make a little like Maria Emmerich's chocolate pudding, which I do with raw eggs, not with hard boiled eggs, because in the Vitamix, they'll cook anyway and it's creamier and it doesn't have that sulfur taste. And she absolutely, 2 weeks later, she was like, his blood sugar came down. His doctor took him off of insulin because now he didn't need to bring in these other treats. He doesn't want to have, he's like, I'm old, I want to eat my sweet stuff, I don't want to, I don't want to do this, I don't want to torture myself with this. And she was like, okay, I want to be happily married. And you know what, she started losing body fat and her weight started moving because she wasn't stressed all the time, because stress will cause you to have hyperinsulinemia and cause you to store body fat. And so I think that each person's situation is unique and different, and nobody should be judging another person's food.
100%, 100% agreed. And yeah, like I said, the stress is such a huge stress and sleep, right? And I tell everybody, I say, you can fix up your diet to the best of everything, but if you are not getting your sleep and if you are highly stressed, it's going to get in the way. It's the cortisol is going to do nasty things. And so, yeah, I just, like I said, I getting back to the original question of what do you tell them? It's like I said, I tell them, to have realistic expectations. You'll always get that $1 million question. How many pounds can I expect to lose?
Can I ask you something, Vic?
Sure.
Do you try to get them off the scale and looking at other like non-scale victories early on? Because I find that's hugely helpful.
I have everybody take their body measurements, and I highly suggest that they put the scale away and not look at the scale. Some of them do, some of them don't, but most of them, I like to tell them that don't just don't concentrate and don't stress out. The scale is not the whole story. Okay?
Right.
And I would have lost, when I say lost, they would have fallen off. So many people would have fallen off the wagon had we not gone the measurement route, because surely, you know what, 2-3 weeks, I haven't lost a pound. Okay, let's look at the measurement. And you know what, cumulative inches, half an inch here and quarter inch there and an inch somewhere else, you've lost 3 to 4 inches over your body.
But you lost fat and you probably gained muscle. I always like to remind people that you've been eating, like if you've been the person that's been eating 60% of your calories from ultra processed foods, that's not there are no nutrients in that. So this is why we can be overfed and undernourished. And so we start eating nourishment. We start eating actual calories that matter to our body and that are the building blocks of our body. Well, we're going to start building. We're going to start building muscle. We're going to start building bone. That weighs something. That's mass, but at the same time, we start burning fat, and fat is like this compared to muscle. And so that body recomposition is real. And sometimes people, they lose like 5 or 6 pounds like right away because of losing that carbohydrate, that puffiness and that inflammation, and that water goes away. And then they just like don't lose anything for a few weeks, but you can see the change. You can see their neck. They actually get a neck. I mean, I've had clients that didn't have a neck, and all of a sudden they have a neck. And that's a huge health marker. To have 100%. A huge neck is a horrible health marker. It really is a predictor of how much visceral fat you have. And so you see this going down, and you know that inside around your liver, the fat is being taken off. And you're building up metabolic machinery that's going to work, like Mark Sisson calls it, factory reset. Your metabolism is going to repair itself and your body will heal. And I think that's the thing, like I love to help people learn to trust that. And I think we have such a diet culture that we're battling, right? Because a lot of times our clients, even if we're dealing with addicts, and almost especially if we're dealing with addicts, am I eating too much? Am I eating just right? They almost get like so like myopic on the food that they forget, like all the stress and not sleeping well and worrying about every little bite of food you're taking, instead of just, here's your food list. Don't eat more than 3 meals a day and eat until you're satisfied so that you can make it to the next meal without hunger. That's magic. That's
Yes.
magic right there. If they can do that for 6 weeks, then we can do some adjusting, but let's get your body repaired first, you know? And I think it's kind of like expecting a car to go fast that needs a new transmission. You know, I think that I love that you really help mitigate expectations with your clients. I think that's very responsible. And I don't think that that's what the diet industry does. The diet industry promises you'll lose 18 pounds in 6 weeks or whatever, or your money back, you know, and then they starve you to get that 18 pounds off. And then you quit ordering their meals and you gain 20 pounds back. Now you have 20 pounds of fat that you've gained back. You have more fat and less muscle and less bone than you started off with. And what we're doing is saying, let's rebuild your engine. Let's refuel your body with really the best fuel on earth, you know?
And then they also, on top of all that, they'll put complete blame on the person, right? It's like if their useless system is not working,
It's your fault.
it's your fault,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
So
you stopped
you-
buying from us is really
yeah,
the message.
so been there, done that. I've been to Weight Watchers, and you go to get for your weekly weigh-in, and well, you haven't lost weight in 1 week or the week
Yes.
after. Well, no, you must be overeating your points. Something must be going wrong. Okay, points, right? It's so there is no compassion that everything is the person's fault. And so even if the person did slip up, I tell them, sweep it under the rug, like if you did slip up and you had something you shouldn't have, you were having that 7 days a week. Now you just had it once. It's a win.
Exactly.
So, right? So yeah, it's compassion, it's patience, it's learning to understand self-love. Being satiated is the number one. The look on their face when you tell them, when they say they come in all stressed and the macros, and I don't understand this macro thing. And
right. And then all of the protein sparing modified fast and all that. That's kind of people, they're so desperate to lose weight that they'll go to this protein sparing modified fast, I think, too quickly. You better be a fat burner before you're doing something like that, or you're going to feel like you're starving and then you're going to binge. Because a protein sparing modified fast, if you lower the fat, but you're able to access your body fat, you're already a fat burner, then fine, do a day or two of that a week. And go ahead and get over that. Like if you have significant amounts of weight to lose, because you're not going to feel like you're starving and you're not going to feel super hungry. But if you do that from the get-go and you don't have the metabolic machinery to do that, you're not getting enough fuel for yourself. And I think that for an addict, that's dangerous. It's dangerous to not get enough fuel for your brain,
I believe it's important for everybody to have an understanding of macros, and just get a good understanding of it, to be educated about it, and down the line it may need to be implemented more seriously depending on the case.
Right.
But out of the starting gate, when they ask me about macros, I tell them we'll get to that. Right now, eat until you're full.
Yes.
And we don't want you hungry. We want to control your hunger. We don't want you to be starving, right? And then if need be, we will teach you about the macros. We will implement them if need be, or maybe not. And
right. I have some of my clients that have never measured have done the best. They've never measured. They just trusted the process. And they were like, all right, yeah, so I've been the same weight for 3 months. So what? And all of a sudden I see them again and they're down another 20 pounds. I have one guy that's down like 150 pounds. He was literally dying, Vic. He had weeping edema. His pants legs were wet all the time because the edema weeped out of his legs. He was that sick. He was getting cellulitis all the time and being hospitalized for it. He was on multiple medications for his blood sugar, including insulin. And his hemoglobin A1C was like 14 or something. It's 5 something now. He's in his 70s. And like you, he enjoys a keto dessert. His wife makes him keto bread. He took a path of least resistance where he's happy with what he eats. He's happy with his life. He never goes hungry. He doesn't restrict. And his health is incredible. I have the funniest picture that they gave me. So they do that that picture with the man and the woman in the pit with the pitchfork in the field, the American Farmer or something, I think it's called. There's one from them before where they're all big and bloated up, and then one from them after, and he's wearing a keto bakery t-shirt. And it's just a great photo, and it just makes me laugh every time. And he's even trimmer than he was in that photo now. So the ongoing benefits of this, and trimmer, maybe he hasn't lost weight, but his body composition is better. So I think, I'm just so glad that you're in this space. I don't think anybody is too old to have a voice in this space. I'm going to be 56 this year. I don't plan on slowing down anytime soon. And I know you don't either. So I say we just keep, each one.
Based on your Instagram, based on your Instagram feed, you're not slowing down anytime soon.
Well, I had 3 years where I could barely move because of my rheumatoid arthritis. And so movement and dance, I've always loved music. I've always loved to dance. And for 3 years, it was hard for me to even lift my arm above my shoulder or wipe my own bottom, to be quite honest. It was horrendous. And keto saved my life, quite literally. I know I would be in a wheelchair by now because I have severe rheumatoid arthritis, and I was on 5 medications without relief. That's ridiculous, you know.
Yeah. And it is, like you said, it's life-changing, it's life-saving.
It's worth a try for anyone, and the one caveat, get your doctor's input. And when I say that, you don't need your doctor's permission to change. You're an adult. You can eat whatever you want to, but go to your doctor, and you don't have to use the word keto. You can say, listen, doc, I'm going to quit eating processed foods, including sugary cereals, pop, juice. I'm going to stay away from the breads and the rice and all that stuff. I'm on blood pressure medication. I'm on insulin. How often do I need to measure? When do I need to lower my insulin? When do I need to call you because my blood pressure is at a certain number? Ask those questions. And I will tell you what, I have doctors in my town that send me people now, even for food addiction, because they've had enough people come back to them from me that they see with their own 2 eyes. Wow, people can and want to do this. And this is different. They aren't hungry. Their markers are improving. When you try to eat low cal and you're still eating high sugar foods, eating that low calorie, you don't change that blood pressure. You don't change that, not like you do with getting rid of the stuff that's hurting you to begin with.
That's an excellent point. And this is people sometimes, they challenge you, right? So when I tell them my blood pressure has gone down and I'm no longer on blood pressure medication, so the ones that are a little bit knowledgeable will say, well, yeah, sure, you lost all that weight. It's only normal that your blood pressure went down, right? I said, well, right, but wrong, because it's not the first time I've lost all this weight. And guess what? When I did it via a starvation, low-fat diet, my blood pressure never fixed.
Right.
So there you go. It's
and I bet you were still pretty heavy when your blood pressure went down doing keto.
Sorry?
I bet you still had weight to lose when your blood pressure went down doing keto.
Oh, absolutely. I was only, eventually, we didn't stop it all in one shot. The first time that I realized one day I was maybe 3 months into my journey. I was sitting in the backyard and I started getting lightheaded, and I was a little bit busy and I don't know anything about this. And but I surely know about my blood pressure, how I feel. And so I put on the cuff, and sure enough, I was at 90/60.
Whoa.
And so the next morning, I called up my doctor and I told him, such and such. And he says, well, toss away your blood pressure medication. I'll re-prescribe you half the dosage, right? So he re-prescribed me half the dosage. And so we went to a acceptable amount. And then another month and a half or two, and then boom, same story, right? And that was it. So I would say within 5 to 6 months, which at that point I probably lost out of the 110, probably about 40 to 50.
Wow. That's
At
amazing. Just that alone. Blood pressure is such an indicator of health. My husband's a interventional cardiologist, and I used to be a nurse. So I don't take these things lightly. Blood pressure increases your risk of stroke, all kinds of things. And so, congratulations on your journey, and congratulations on helping so many people and making beautiful food for people to be able to have choices. I think it's important for people uh, to learn how to make simply prepared meals that they can eat, because not everybody's like you and I, where we know our way around the kitchen, as you said earlier. And so it's nice that you do post those recipes and pictures of food and things, so that people can be like, oh, well, I could eat that. I can live with that. It's a good demonstration for people, I think.
And that's what I try to show them, and I tell them, I say, don't think that some of the foods that I post, don't think that this is how I'm eating 7 days a week. Okay, Monday to Friday, or Monday to Friday, I'm eating your regular boring, your any protein, any veggie, right?
Right.
And then at this point of where I am in my journey, sure, on a Saturday night it'll be one of those meals, right?
Right.
Which is totally keto friendly. But I tell
Yes.
them, you can't be eating this way 7 days a week. We'll end up getting in trouble, right? So, but
Yes.
I like to show that it is possible. You don't have to be deprived. You don't have to be um, uh,
Right.
starving.
I don't think that restricting yourself from eating foods that are harmful to you is deprivation. I love that you use that word deprivation, because it's definitely the least depriving way of eating I have ever done. And even during the week, Vic, I make myself, my friends used to laugh at me. They'd be like, oh my God, you don't have to go knock yourself out for me. Like if they stopped by, and I was like, oh, stay for lunch, you don't have to knock yourself. I'm like, this is how I would cook for myself, because that's something I was taught growing up. And some people are just that way. And so, I make myself salmon patties with homemade, Bubby's pickle relish tartar sauce or whatever. Even during the week, I do things like that. Or I prepare, even if I'm not hungry in the morning and I know my daughter's got a big day at school, I'll make her a really big, nice breakfast. Or I enjoy doing those things for people still, but in a healthier way. So, but it has been a pleasure visiting with you. I'll probably
Always a
post
pleasure.
this on Sunday, because I'm going to go ahead and mess with it a
Always a
little bit.
pleasure. And I'd like to thank you guys for everything you do, you yourself in particular, and then the whole crew, okay, of Sugar Bomb and Brain. That's where I got to meet all of you, and Dave and Jen, and oh God, I don't want to forget anybody, but so many of you are just doing such wonderful work.
And you too, and I think you nailed it. You get a community of people that really care about true health, mentally, physically, spiritually, and it's a very supportive community and non-dogmatic. We celebrate if people just get off the soda pop, don't we, Vic?
And you know what? In closing, I'll say that this community is the key. Everybody needs to be involved. Everybody on a different level, some more than others, some less, but in the very least, even if you're somebody who's shy, partake, listen to it, listen. There's so many people giving such good information. It keeps you motivated. It I mean, I can tell you, I mean, you know, I'm there all the time, and I'm engaged 7 days a week, and it's not because I have to; it's because I want to. It's who I've become. I think it's crucial to my success. I've learned so much from your group that I didn't have that much knowledge on, and now that I'm going down that rabbit hole of addiction, right? I didn't have that much knowledge about addiction. I learned that through all of you, and I say this is like there's so much more to be had here. And so knowledge is power. Use it. Be part of the community. And God bless everybody. It's great.
Thanks, Vic.